Mr. President, thank you so much for being willing to speak with Columbia students, Columbia professors about your country. And we will directly jump in with the first question.
As we all know, too often climate change is with us. Your country has a distinction. It's carbon minus, so therefore you're not harming the world at all, but yet you're suffering. You have floods, etc. On the other hand, you have a contradiction, you're also doing all development, but yet you want to be resilient. So how do you, and you need to work with partners because you can't do it alone. So how do you balance all of these almost conflicting topics?
Yes, that's a very important question, and that is what was also a theme during our discussion in the United Nations, and also within the framework of the COP, what we have, which will be further discussed in Azerbaijan, COP 29. And the tone, what you're hearing is phasing out the fossil fuel. That noise is becoming stronger. It's putting pressure on you as a small nation, as a newcomer in the offshore oil production, and we took it as a challenge. That's first thing, and our view is that we as small nation, as a newcomer, as you mentioned, we are a carbon negative country, but the value of the carbon negative will be understood if we see also the carbon negative status from the background that we have an industry of more than 100 years in the bauxite, aluminum industry. We have 2 gold mining companies. We have a lot of small scale gold mining. We have our national state oil operating for more than 40 years onshore. And we have so many other production facilities and industries going on in the country. And despite that, we are carbon negative. That means it is possible that if you design a comprehensive strategy, a well-balanced, and to take control on your energy sector, because in addition to the fossil fuel, we do have our hydro, we do have our solar energy. We're investing in more and more solar energy. We're inviting investors to invest also in the hydrogen, in the wind energy. So we do have a comprehensive strategy, well balanced, which has the following principles. We will remain carbon negative. We have a science-based study group, which is monitoring this process based on also international criteria and also with the international community. Secondly, there's also a moral issue. A moral issue is that we're keeping our forest controlled in a sustainable manner. We do want, on the other hand, climate resilience. But what our admission is on national level, that is absorbed by our forests. However, there's a small portion. So we are absorbing with our forests so many other emissions in the world. So we are a carbon sink nation. And that is, I think, where the world should look it from another angle to our country. That we are carbon negative, we are a carbon sink nation. We do have a comprehensive strategy. We do have a strategy on phasing out the fossil fuel. We do have also the transition towards the green economy, that we should get as country the fair chance, the fair opportunity to continue with this sustainable strategy, and that we should get the opportunity as country to make good use of the God-given fuel over there. And the FID will be announced the coming days in Suriname by Total Energy. However, that we should have a production strategy based on the international norms, based on the international program, but also utilizing the modern technology and taking into consideration the environmental conditions for the oil production and the fossil fuel. So our role will be to, on one hand, to protect the planet by continuing with our carbon negative position and by investing in the forest, by investing in the biodiversity, by having also a resilient climate strategy. But please look also at our position based on the impact of the climate change, that despite we are not causing the admission, it is the impact of the climate change which is causing for the sea level rise. It is the climate change which is causing more rains. It's the climate change which is creating more droughts. And all these three phenomena we are facing at this moment with the level of the seawater. The water is coming inside, not only physically, but also as groundwater, affecting the agriculture soil. On the other hand, we see in the west part the rice production, which is facing also severe droughts. And in the interior, we notice also a period of heavy rain with flooding, but also period with severe droughts. And you should imagine that the villages in the interior of the tribal community, those villages you can reach by two means. That's by the waterway, the creeks, and by air, which is very expensive. So imagine what is happening if these rivers dried up. There is no connection. What is happening with the cost of living of these people? Everything should be done by air. It's very expensive. So the impact of the climate change is more than what we can imagine. You need to be at the local level. And I went in the interior to the tribal community of Matawai, when the water level was 6-7 meters above their village. Everything displaced, removed, gone. And thereafter, I went there. So I asked why there are so few people left over here. I said, well, every year this is happening. So the people are moving from the village. They are going to other villages, higher location, or they are going to the capital to find for better opportunity. Well, that answer should be studied carefully. What will happen? That if this will continue and there will be no adaptation in a sustainable manner, this village will disappear. The biodiversity will disappear. The history will disappear. There is tradition there will disappear. There is spirituality of the community will disappear. So it is more what we'll lose in the world. And I think that we should consider those circumstances seriously and to come with a comprehensive plan where all these groups are willing to go to a higher location. They are willing. But it's not only the physical movement of people and their houses to a higher place. It is more. It's creating the road infrastructure, the water supply infrastructure, because the river is the water. The river is the water resource. You know? So yes, you need a comprehensive strategy, you need a well-balanced strategy, but you need the inclusion of all the people, but you need also the inclusion of the world in finding also a good solution for those small nations which are disappearing every day, centimeter by centimeter. And that is what needs to be addressed as quick as possible by the world community.
better need to understand it, because we don't always appreciate it.
Yes.
And you already touched on it now, talking about the global community. Of course, we're right now here in New York, and you have experience working multilaterally, internationally in CARICOM and the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission. So which lessons can be learned from this multilateral work that you have done? And what do you hope to accomplish through further multilateral joining of forces?
Yes. Let me go back to the multilateral system. When the United Nations was founded after two devastated wars, it has a purpose, and the objective was never war again. To maintain peace, maintain order, good collaboration. And that was the philosophy at that time. At that time, when more things happened than only the founding of the United Nations and the Charter of the United Nations, but also the classification of countries. And you can imagine, at that time, we were part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands as a colony. We were not there. We didn't have a voice. So at that time, we were ranked as a country based on the situation at that time of the Kingdom of the Netherlands as a middle-income country. That ranking system is still functional after so many years and has having a lot of impact of those countries, also my country, in getting access to concessional loans, financial support or subsidies, because your rank is overvalued while we are a developing country, a low-income country. Well, you need to change this financial architecture, which has been established so many years. And this is also happening with the multilateralism of the United Nations. That the world is changing, and the world is changing so rapidly that the question is very often arising if that multilateralism is well prepared for those global changes. We just saw a couple of years ago, the COVID-19. How was the response of the multilateral system? Firstly, protection. Me first, then you. That was the language. So that's an example that also in the area of health threat, the system was not responding effectively. But also in terms of wars and conflicts, what is going on now at this moment? We see that the system is under pressure, multilateralism is under pressure, but there is no other option. There is no other option. You need to strengthen this multilateralism. You need to remove the bureaucracy. You need to create more effectiveness, but also based on the objective of so many years ago. Yes, there are issues which are hampering the effectiveness of the United Nations, the ideological differences between powerful nations. On the other side, you see the lack of capacity to respond immediately. In my own area, we have the system nation of Haiti. Haiti is for many years controlled by gangs. The gangs removed the rule of law, the judiciary. They are controlling 80% of the Haitian territory with everyday human rights violations, violations against girls, women. That's happening at this moment. And you can imagine how difficult it is to bring solution with that multilateralism. And also giving the position of the big countries which are having ideological differences. And that is an issue which is hampering a lot of decision in the system. We need to change that. We need to bring more effective system, more justice in the system, but also more rights for all the member states. And I think this is a big challenge for the United Nations, to look at itself, to look at its effectiveness. And I think the big nations who were there from the beginning and still have a strong position in terms of veto, that they should consider this as also their challenge for the world, their challenge for mankind, their challenge to protect the nations, protect the planet. And I think those issues should be addressed by bringing the leaders, together and to have discussion outside that system, what their role is, together with the other nations, that they were granted leadership in the world, not only for the veto, that they were granted leadership role to take responsibility, to protect the world, to serve the world. The world is now changing. There are more and more countries. But if the system will fail, then countries will look for other system. They will get a G7 there, they will get a G20, they will get a G77. These things will happen because people are looking for the best way to serve the interests of the people in the world, to serve the best interests of the community in the world. But you will not do that by bypass. And we need to go to the core business and to solve that problem within the United Nations system, within the multilateralism system. And there we should call on also the leadership to look also at those aspects, not to look with a narrow-minded vision based on only national interest.
Let me follow up a little bit on the multilateralism, but let me digress a little bit. We're going to have COP29, I think it is this year, and I gave a speech. What was my speech on COP29? I called it NATO, but not the NATO that you know, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty. I called it no action, talk only. Okay, small n for NATO. In that regard, multilateralism is needed, but yet is a challenge. You actually have called for a new summit of the future. Is this another one, multilateralism? Remember when I was a kid, and I'm sure that you had the same, my parents used to say, two's a company, three's a crowd. So yes. Multilateralism is a crowd. How do you handle this?
Yes. I think COP and also the Summit of the Future, those two instruments are still embedded within the United Nations system. And I think as regards COP, that yes, the feeling and also the conviction is coming that the COP is not responding on all those challenges, with the consequence that the credibility is coming under pressure. And I'm fully understanding why you're calling it as a NATO. But you need to come together. That's the only mechanism to show the world and show the member states and show the people that if we'll not change our policy, if we'll not reduce our emission, and if we'll not come with the other instruments like adaptation and loss and damage, that the world will be destroyed. This is an existential threat. There will be no mankind. and we need to continue, and that should be the tone what should be changed within the COP by not taking the action, but not putting the mechanism in place, by not taking the measures. You're part of the problem. You're part of the problem. You're part of the destruction of the planet. And that should be addressed more and more, instead of that you should take the proper action, and that you should have a carbon credit strategy to be carbon neutral by initiating carbon trade. And instead of limiting your emission, reducing your emission, you're going to the trade market and buying carbon credit over there, trying to create net zero balance. That's not a solution. That was not meant when we initiated with the Paris Accord all these actions. And that will be also my message. Yes, we are engaged now in the carbon trade world, based on also the compliance of the United Nations UNFCCC, and we'll do in such a manner that that will not threaten our carbon negative status. However, my country deserves the people who have sacrificed for many years, and the people who have protected the forest, that we need to give them also that compensation, to continue with that sustainable forest management, to continue with that strengthening and protecting of that biodiversity in a responsible manner. But to substitute the agenda, to make it a trade, well, from who you will buy? The carbons are identified already. So if you will engage in a trade negotiation with the carbon neutral or carbon negative countries, what will happen with these countries? If you will continue to trade your carbon. No, you need to protect these countries. And that will be one of our decisions in COP29, that we will sign an agreement to form a coalition of all the countries which are carbon negative. There are 3, with all the countries which are carbon neutral. We need to join and agree in an agreement, and we will call upon the world to protect us, to give us the necessary support and technical assistance. Don't come and buy the carbon credit to us, to threaten us. That's not the business. What was initiated, but everything is becoming commercialized. And by the commercialization of the carbon trade, you will not protect the planet. People and companies and countries will continue with their emission, and they will try to neutralize that, to keep that in balance by trading the carbon credit. So I fully agree, but I'm not seeing anything as another option. I think the theme should be changed. I think the control mechanism should be more aggressive. And if we need to amend the Paris Accord, we need to do it. But we need to have a thorough evaluation where we stand in now, where we're heading, and what action must be put in place. And if therefore there will be amendment of that Paris Accord, we have to do it. And if again the agenda should be sharper of the COP29, we have to do it. The COP30 will be a very challenging one, because that will be in my neighboring country, Brazil, in the Amazon forest, and Belém do Pará, in the Amazon forest, so that people can witness what is happening there with the Amazon forest. That is the lung of the world. And if that will be destroyed, what will happen with the world? So I think that with the meeting over here and all the preparatory meeting, there will be for 2 weeks a meeting in Colombia on the biodiversity, that the countries are well prepared. And I think that the agenda should be concentrate also on the moral side of the policy, the moral side of the leadership, the moral side of what your role is as human being, not as a political leader, as human being, to deliver your contribution to protect the nation, to protect the planet.
I appreciate your focus also on the moral, because too often we want to do the nuts and the bolts commercial,
Yes.
but unfortunately that doesn't solve anything, because you cannot add or subtract what is moral.
That's true.
And with that, we already come to the final question, and that goes on more towards your personal path towards leadership and in those different leadership roles. From your career, from your path in public office, what have you learned that you can bring to the next generation of willing public policy shapers, change makers, and leaders that they should take with them on their way?
Well, I think during this interview, I was watching you both. One professor and one young boy. Look what he's doing. That is the best method to transfer knowledge, transfer wisdom. A professor is not only a person with knowledge, and you can get all the knowledge at the Columbia University. But wisdom, you have to find somewhere else. And that's a professor.
Mm-hmm.
Wisdom. My experience as a leader is that very often we starting by treating the young people as people who are not part yet in the current development. Very often you will hear, also in my country, the youth is the future of tomorrow. That they are saying. No, they're future of today. As soon as you take that as a phrase, everything will be different. But as soon as you start changing that phrase, the youth is the future of today, then you need to include them in today's discussion. You should discuss climate change, not a professor. He will be gone, I'll be gone. You should come with the young people. And the young people are the smart people in the IT, in the modern technology. They are born in that system. The professor was not born in the system. I was not born in the system. If I put a traditional phone for you, you'll look at it. What is it? But your time is the modern time, the modern technology. And I can tell you, yes, all the actions we should take as human beings to protect the planet, but the best solution will be in the modern technology. Because when I'm discussing, also based on the pressure on facing all the fossil energy with the oil companies to see what their position is, their remark is, yes, there's a concern, but based on science-based information, what is available, that there's more emission by airplanes, by cars, by vehicles, than the production of on oil, on the exploitation of oil. So then we have to look where you need to bring those changes. So I think the young people will play a very important role, starting from the first class. And I hope that your university, if not yet, can make that difference. In my country, I had announced during a CARICOM Heads of Conference, which I had chaired, that my country is offering 40 hectares of land for setting up a campus. And that offer is still available. A campus for what? For climate change study, for biodiversity study, things which are threatening with high-tech modern technology, and bring the smart students over there. And they will find the best solution, how to deal with current challenges, where we old people cannot find the solution, but the young people will find it. So I think we need to include the young people, not giving only a position at the table, but give them the responsibility. But don't push it on the day of tomorrow. Include him now.
Let me correct you slightly. I'm young, he's just younger.
You're right. You're right.
And with that, thank you so much for taking your time. That was great. Thank you so much.
You with the young spirit, with a very young spirit.
Exactly.